Good evening and welcome to the Coeur d'Alene City Council meeting. The first thing that we have is the roll call, and the clerk will note that all council are present. Secondly, we have the invocation by Pastor David Bond. Pastor Bond.
Everyone please stand. Let's pray together. In James 1:5 it says, "If any one of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening. What a privilege it is to participate in this legislative process. Father, I thank you for these men and women that stand before me right now. I thank you for their time and their lives, Father. These are our elected officials. They give sacrificially, Lord. They don't clock out of their job. And they take it very serious, and I give you praise for that, Father. Father, I pray that there be a level of attentiveness tonight to the process that's set before us. Father, I thank you for just the opportunity that we have to engage in such a way. Father, I pull the elephant out of the room. We're talking about and going to be discussing publicly ARPA funds. What does that mean? What does it look like? I pray for this council that they would be attentive to their city. Right here, this representation of the city. I pray that amicable decisions can be made, Father, but even foremost, I pray that there will be decisions made to keep the decisions local. Father, I give you praise for this time. I pray that throughout this evening that there be appropriate measures of emotion. I pray that process is not lost through inappropriate outburst or emotion. I pray that your spirit of peace would rest on this place. Father, what a privilege it is to engage in this discussion. Let your presence be made known and your peace rest on this place. We love you, Lord. Pray these things in your name. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Dan, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda, Council? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comments. Under public comments, anyone that wishes to speak to the Council on various city issues may do so. We ask that you keep your time to 3 minutes so others have an opportunity to speak. This clock in front of the city clerk will time you. Anyone wishing to use that forum? Please give us your name, please.
Hello, my name is Linda Putz, and I want to say thank you to you, Mr. Mayor, and Councilman Gookin. I want to thank you for allowing us, the public, to have a few moments of your time to express our deep concerns regarding ARPA funding. Last week, many of us were very passionate about this issue for a wide variety of reasons. Our passion has not left us. However, I'm hoping that we will all be able to share our concerns with the utmost of respect that each one of you deserve. With your permission, I have a handout for each one of you.
Homework.
Sure. You need to save one for Renata.
Oh dear, I counted wrong. I brought
Or just-
6, not 7. I'm so
No,
sorry.
one for the clerk,
All right,
but
May.
Oh, okay.
we'll share.
Okay, all righty, thank you.
I thought the mayor wasn't going to get one.
I'm so
I'm not.
sorry.
Oh,
Gonna
you're
share
not.
with
It's
you.
a council meeting, not mayor meeting.
Okay.
Would it be all right with you if I started my 3 minutes now? Would that be okay?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the pastor's prayer about all of us desiring wisdom and asking the Lord for it. And I really appreciated his prayer for decisions being made that would be local. That is what this is all about. The greatest concern that the majority of those who are opposed to ARPA funding have is Rule 9 of the United States Treasury, which states that the recipient agrees to apply with the requirements of Section 603 of the Act, along with guidance issued by the Treasury. In addition, quote, recipient also agrees to comply with all other applicable federal statutes, regulations, and executive orders, and recipient shall provide for such compliance by other parties in any agreements it enters into with other parties relating to this award. This same condition is also listed on page 433. That's that first page, actually, that you have in your folder, of the 437-page document issued by the Treasury Department as part of their final rule, Section 35.9, with a minor variance in its description of private subcontractors. In other words, not only will the city be held to all applicable federal executive orders, but also all subcontractors. For instance, last week your desire was to build a new police facility. Any local companies, which I'm assuming is who you would hire for this work, such as concrete, framing, cabinets, painting, landscaping, etc., would also have to adhere to any federal executive orders, which may include masking, vaccinations, passports, etc. In today's current political climate, many of these executive orders are contrary to the values, beliefs, and freedoms that many Idahoans hold dear to their hearts. As we observed last week with the SCOTUS decision regarding President Biden's executive order mandating vaccines for all companies with 100 or more employees, some orders are unconstitutional but take far too long to be repealed. Some of the applicable federal executive orders are Executive Order 13987, which establishes a response coordinator to help agencies incentivize, support, and encourage widespread mask wearing. As you know, the majority of Idahoans do not support mask wearing for health reasons as delineated by science and common sense. Executive Order 13994 further is in order to further public understanding of the pandemic and to prevent the spread of misinformation. In other words, any scientific or medical research or information other than the government's information is misinformation. Executive Order 14000 says Washington, D.C. will assist schools in deciding whether and how to reopen and how to remain open. Are we going to let D.C. tell us what to do with our kids? Executive Order 13999, protecting health worker health and safety, orders OSHA. I am so sorry. I swear I have 30 seconds. Would that be all right?
Yes.
Thank you. Orders OSHA to revise its guidance on workplace safety during COVID-19 and to launch a national program that will increase enforcement on workplace violations. In other words, they will tell local businesses how to manage their employees and fine them if they don't do it the DC way. Haven't our local businesses suffered enough? So now are we, the city, now going to be required to participate and enforce these orders? Yes, they are part of the requirements for accepting the funds. Accepting these funds is like giving a college student a credit card, telling them to go and enjoy themselves, then later demanding that the card be repaid. It's like allowing a Trojan horse into the city gates and hoping nothing bad happens. I completely understand how tantalizing this money is. All of the city's dreams and wishes could come true without having to, quote unquote, raise taxes. I've even heard it said that this is our federal money anyway, so we should be allowed to spend it. Obviously, that's not correct. This is money that has been printed by the government, no different than if we went to the Xerox machine and printed it ourselves. These monies are tax dollars our great-grandchildren are going to be paying for. These monies are going to help bring about hyperinflation. I know that tonight is not going to be the time that this council will suddenly reverse itself and decline the ARPA funds. What I'm asking the council to do is to pause, take a deep breath, allow a thorough read-through of the stipulation to which we will be indebted to and the projects that are allowed. Please, can we take this slow? Can we please have more public input? Can legal please, without a shadow of a doubt, assure us that this is not a Trojan horse? I'm pleading with you to take a moment, allow the public to know what is being offered and at what price. And I'm asking if we could please have outside legal counsel that would really give us an opportunity to see what this is all, what this act entails. Thank you.
Yay.
Please give us your name and address.
Kendra Martin. I'm actually from Naples. This is my third meeting today about this subject. Last week we learned that Governor Ducey of Arizona received ARPA funds to help kids get back to school, but he refused to push mask and vaccine agendas dictated by ARPA compliance and reporting rules. That was a big mistake, for COVID relief is not what this bill is about. According to the IRS notice 1444-C, a letter from the White House signed by J.R. Biden Jr., it is about the fear of COVID and the control over America's right to body autonomy by seeing that every American is vaccinated. He states this twice in that letter. It is also about our economy and creating soaring inflation until our economy breaks and creates a welfare state and nation. Think of the Build Back Better trillions of dollars that are heading on the heels of ARPA, thus instilling a federal dependency and control. Bye-bye our Constitution and civil rights. Governor Ducey of Arizona has been given 60 days to recant. If Governor Ducey does not recant and repackage his program to have equitable outcome, which is page 3 of the compliance and reporting, the $163 million will be deemed a state debt and to be paid promptly. The Treasury will take whatever means necessary to reclaim the debt. We know that by Rule 4 in the Maintenance of and Access to Records and Rule 14 in the U.S. Treasury Awards and Terms Conditions, which all treasurers who have received the money signed for. ARPA is about equity, not equal opportunity, but equitable outcome. That's Executive Order 13985, which is socialism, and when it coupled with tyranny is called communism, demonstrated by the compliance officer that contacted Governor Ducey. The only true equity is selfless giving. It's what we celebrated 2 years ago when our nurses and our doctors remained at work, voluntarily quarantining themselves from their families to keep them and their patients safe as they were serving those suffering. And then we called them heroes. Equity cannot be mandated. As children in Sunday school, many of us learn to love our neighbors as ourselves. That's found in Leviticus 19:18 and also recorded in Matthew and Mark as the second great commandment. Those words trained hearts to serve others, esteeming others higher than themselves and reflecting what God did for us on the cross. He sacrificed. To mandate sacrifice, helping, and serving others, as this ARPA bill, executive orders, and compliance rules do, breeds selfishness, division, and hatred. What would Martin Luther King, who we just honored, think? Would he stand for equity or equality? There is nothing to gain here, but everything to lose. To remain free American today is today, now is the time, and we need to take a stand and be an example, like Sheriff Darrell Wheeler in Bonner County, like Shoshone County, like Bonner and Boundary County, who are waiting for legal analysis and decision. May I please finish? I'm this short. I have 3 sentences. Like other 70 counties and cities in Texas and also Missouri, turn away from the dangling entanglements and return to the ideology of our founders. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security deserves neither and will lose both. Ben Franklin.
Thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I would ask you to hold your applause so we can continue to get whoever wishes to speak up to the podium. Who else wishes to speak?
I'll speak if nobody else will. I'm new to Idaho.
Please wait till you get to the podium, and please give us your name and your address, please.
My name is Karen Elkins, and I just moved, and I'm so happy to be here, and I hope it stays that
And
way. My
your
address
address?
is 516 East Reed Avenue.
Thank you.
What I did notice a long time ago, I do a magazine, I get a lot of stuff internationally. 2030 Agenda is on the Idaho list. The 2030 Agenda is a globalist agenda. If you look what's happening around the world, this is not just an Idaho issue. This is an issue for the freedom of people, for humanity. You have absolutely no right to mandate a vaccine or a mask. We are part of the Nuremberg Code, which forbids you to do that. You are against the Constitution. You are against humanity. Do you know that there are 400% increase in insurances for death because of the vax? Do you know that the nursing homes are up 40% because of it? If you aren't looking outside the mainstream media, if you aren't looking at what UK is doing for their research or what South Africa is doing for their research, you have got your heads up your ass. And I'm just going to say one thing. I hope with every breath of your being that you look at us as people and you do not comply or take money just for the sake of taking it. You are compromising the integrity of the people back here who have shown up. And they want you to stand solid for this state, for the people, for humanity. People are coming out in groves to stand up, and we hope you do too. There are a convention of states showing up. There are people everywhere who are sick and tired of government telling them what to do. You are for the people and by the people. And when you do not comply to those agenda, you have missed the entire boat of why you're in service.
Thank you.
Randy Neal, Coeur d'Alene. In reviewing the...
Can you give your full address, please?
3290 North 11th Street.
Thank you.
In reviewing the agenda from the previous meeting, it does not adhere to public meeting laws. The point of Idaho public meeting laws is for the public to have a opportunity to know what's going on within the county. Any decision that was made at the previous meeting is null and void, because and the council must remedy that. Furthermore, in the ARPA document provided by the federal government on page 194 and 195, it states, further, such large projects must be likely to be reasonably proportioned to the harm. Identified, for example, construction of a new, larger public facility for the purposes of increasing the ability to social distance generally would not be considered a reasonable proportional response compared to other less time and resource-intensive options. Unfortunately, the new police station does not meet the ARPA guidance. I just hope and I pray that this council will listen to the people. I believe it was once stated that in order for a well-functioning democracy, the public must be well-informed. And we are well-informed, and we're trying to help you.
Thank you.
My name is Ralph Passwater. I'm at 2948 West Hosta Avenue in Coeur d'Alene. And I'm here tonight because I wanted to speak specifically and make you aware of Executive Order 13994. This order is to further public understanding of the pandemic and to prevent the spread of misinformation. In other words, any scientific or medical research or information other than the government's information is misinformation. Isn't that tyranny, pure and simple? Isn't this a violation of our First Amendment rights of free speech or even freedom of the press, which today is the web? We've all seen highly respected doctors, scientists, researchers deplatformed and canceled because they dared to stand against the government narrative, which breeds fear and division. Just last week, a doctor in Maine with 41 years of practice had her license suspended because she treated her patients contrary to the government's narrative. It used to be a doctor and patient made medical decisions, It used to be that doctor and patient made medical decisions based on what was best for an individual. Now it's Washington, D.C. and hospital administrators that make those determinations. What are the feds going to do to silence those of us who are choosing alternative care? What are the feds going to do to our health care providers? Are we, as a city, going to be part of oppressing the rights of people to have a different opinion or choose a way that is different than the federal narrative? I implore you, please take a look at this again and reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to speak. I'm Kim Eichler, 4465 East Fennec Fox Lane, Post Falls. And this is for Stephanie on her behalf. Last year, Newsweek magazine wrote, rather than another bailout from the federal government, states need to take the difficult but necessary actions to govern. President Ronald Reagan reminded us that the federal government did not create the states created the federal government. Right. To preserve state autonomy and our system of competitive federalism across the 50 laboratories of democracy, states need to retain the ultimate responsibility for their taxing and spending decisions, even when it is difficult to do so. When temporary federal money runs out, states have historically increased tax permanently to make up the difference. Each dollar of federal grant money results in 40 cents of state and local tax increases. Very few voters like tax increases, especially permanent ones. That problem tends to motivate people to vote in elections. Section 35(9), compliance with applicable laws on page 433 states, a recipient must comply with all other applicable federal statutes, regulations, and executive orders, and a recipient shall provide for compliance with the American Rescue Plan Act. That's the crux of this entire act. This section allows the president, one man, to decide by any current or future executive order to force us to abide by federal mandates of any kind or pay back the money. It doesn't matter what Congress or the Supreme Court says, you have to do it or give the money back. This just happened last week in Arizona. Page 46 through 59 discuss the impact of COVID on physical and mental public health, including social distancing, mask and vaccine mandates, changes to public buildings, increased suicides, human trafficking, sexual violence, and gun violence. All these topics are open to executive orders mandating that we run our cities a certain way or return the money. For example, has gun violence exploded in inner cities due to the pandemic? It's a great excuse for stricter national gun laws or even confiscation. Want to improve or build a building with the capital expenditures? Anyone entering that building must now have a current booster or wear a mask. You want to hire more police? All police must have updated boosters or wear masks. Once spent, we can't just give the money back if we decide that there is no executive order in which we don't want to comply. Taking the funds also prohibits cities and states from reducing taxes until after 2024. To lower our own taxes would be an admission that we didn't need the ARPA funding in the first place. People are drawn here to escape the heavy lockdowns and masks and vaccine mandates. Our state tax revenue was likely higher than most years. If we don't need the money, we must use our own money and have autonomy. Page 406 says that we have no idea how long they will be able to use this crisis to have us do whatever they want. Section 3510 says that the government has until December 31st, 2026 to force the city to give back the money if they think we violated any part of the agreement. That's 5 years of waiting for the shoe to drop. My last point of the Kootenai County has a double vaccine rate of under 45%, and if you look around when you are out and about, you know that a very low percentage of us wear masks, probably less than 5%. Those who were going to get the jab have already gotten it. Most of the people who haven't will probably put up a fight to keep from getting it. People have quit their jobs, lost income, and even moved away to avoid forced vaccines. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Garth Brooks, 123 Main Street.
What city?
Coeur d'Alene.
Oh, thank you.
If you look here tonight, the number of people that have gathered, people of varying ages, old, young, social classes, upper crust people, middle class, lower class people like myself. We're all here. These are the people that vote. These are the people that you represent. These are the people who it's going to affect. I want to say that because that is a very real reality that I think is not being borne in mind. We are the people. You guys are our representatives. What I wanted to say tonight is that in the last workshop, quote unquote, there was a blatant violation of Idaho open meeting law. And I talked to Troy Tymason about this, and I asked him, was this above board for you guys to be making a motion during a workshop? It was not agendized. The only thing that the agenda said was that it was a workshop on ARPA, and that was it. So Idaho Open Meeting Law, Title 74, Chapter 2, Section 4 says that any action that's taken, it has to be spelled out. You have to spell it out. But you guys did not do that. You remember I asked you, right, Troy? You said you guys were above board. You guys were not above board. Even tonight, on tonight's agenda, you guys have not spelled it out, that you guys are going to be accepting or making a motion to accept ARPA funds. So I want to go on the record to say this: you guys are opening the city up to a lawsuit. Because if you guys want to make a motion to accept the ARPA funds, then agendize it properly. You guys can make a decision. Obviously, we already know, because you guys already voted, that you guys want to accept the money. But at least put it on the agenda so that we can be properly noticed. And we can, because even the people that are showing up right now, it's not even properly noticed, and we're showing up. Imagine if you were to properly notice it to people. Imagine how many people would come out to tell you what they think. So that's all I just want to say is you guys are openly violating Idaho open meeting law. And if you guys want to accept the money, yeah, whatever, but properly agendize it.
Thank you. Before our next speaker, I want to clarify that this is an agenda item for tonight. It was in the paper as an item for tonight to be dealt with. So it has been properly noticed. Yes, ma'am.
Ruddick, 4108 West Arrowhead, Coeur d'Alene. A quote from Martin Luther King: "Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it's right." CDA is slotted to receive $8.6 million. Our population is approximately 55,000. That equates to $156.36 per person. Are you willing to sell out the sovereignty of our city and the people for $156 each? As of now, the city's received half that money, and it means the city is willing to accept this Trojan horse of money, of regulation. There are 68 entities in Texas alone, as well as other states and colleges, that have said no to ARPA. Sheriff Wheeler in Bonner County has said no to ARPA. Why? Overall, they don't want to be beholden to the federal government. They believe in state sovereignty and are not willing to allow the Trojan horse in. I call that wisdom. As you heard just last week, Arizona received a letter from the Treasury stating they were going to rescind their funds due to the fact that they don't require masks of their school children. Will the city be willing and ready to repay the funds when we don't mask our children, or our bus drivers, or our lake cruise riders? You know our spirit of freedom up here. we will not comply. Earlier in the month, our government announced that Idaho has a $1.6 billion surplus that he intends to invest in education, infrastructure, and other state investments. Let Idaho invest that in Idaho. Keep Washington, D.C. out of our homes, our bodies, and off our faces. For the sake of our sovereignty and freedoms, and for the sake of our children, for the sake of Washington, D.C. bureaucrats controlling Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, please reconsider accepting this ARPA money.
Thank you.
I'm Don Eichler. I live at 4465 East Fennec Fox Lane in Post Falls. And while I don't live in Coeur d'Alene, what Coeur d'Alene does affects me. And the first thing I want to bring to your attention is there's going to be groups of people that are going to be required to wear masks because of this. And a virus is 1 micron in size, and the smallest air passages in a mask are 80 microns. It's like a mosquito flying through a chain link fence. It's a psychological operation to cause people to look around like sheep and to force people to conform and create fear. Now, I moved here from Gresham, Oregon, a suburb of Portland, Oregon, 16 months ago, and I lived there my whole life. Beautiful place. But it's just turned into a pit because of the liberal policies forced on the people through a government that hasn't really had a fair election since we got mail-in ballots in 1998. And I know that Oregon is a red state by the people that I know there. And we don't need the feds coming in here telling us how to run Idaho. I moved here for freedom. I like it here. Please send the money back. And don't sell our sovereignty for dump trucks and trinkets. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Caleb. I live up at 4529 East Cattail Court in Hayden. And I just wanted to address some of how the expenditures must be used for stemming COVID and COVID-related losses. Things such as fire department floorings, fleet trucks, gate automations, building department inspection vehicles, and library water bottle filling stations are not exactly geared towards stemming the spread of COVID, hence they are not allowed under ARPA. Page 414 out of 400 through 419, section 35.6, eligible uses, states that private households who experience unemployment or food shortages are eligible for funds. Funds can be used for vaccination programs and incentives, testing programs, and contact tracing. Funds can be used for burials given to surviving family members of individuals who have died from COVID, including cash assistance or surviving spouses or dependents of individuals who have died. Is this money going to be on the wish list for the people who have suffered? According to the final rule, a new police facility is not even allowed under these rules. Look at page 195 that states, construction of new, larger public facility for the purpose of increasing the ability to social distance generally would not be considered a reasonable proportional response compared to other less time and resource-intensive options that may be available and may be equally or more effective. Other solutions, such as improvements in ventilations, could be made much more quickly and are typically more cost-effective than constructing a new, larger facility. In order to be able to build a new police station, you have to prove that the city had a reduction in general revenue. In light of everyone moving here, in light of us not locking down and our lack of cooperation with lockdowns and increase in property values, I would doubt that we can prove that we've lost a significant amount of money due to what's happened. Let me read you some of these excerpts from page 191 through 199. Capital expenditures should be related and reasonably proportional responses to public health or negative economic impact of the pandemic. Treasury will require projects with total expenditure capital costs of $1 million or greater to undergo additional analysis to justify their capital expenditure. Increased reporting requirements will be required for projects that are larger in size. Capital expenditures of $1 million or greater, recipients must be complete and meet the substantive requirements of written justification. Construction of a new, larger public facility for the purpose of increasing the ability to social distance generally would not be considered a reasonable proportional response compared to the other less time and resource intensive options that may result in available and be equally or more effective. The written justification. Let me just read this last part here. Description of harm and needs to be addressed. Recipients should provide a description of the specific harm or need to address and why the harm was exacerbated or caused by the public health emergency. Thank you for your time. I hope you would please reconsider these funds.
I'm sorry, Caleb, I didn't get your last name. Last name, please.
Caleb, need your last name?
Oh, last name? Putz, P-U-T-Z.
I just want to say, does that mean better things like camps?
My name's Roger Ruddick, 41008 Arrowhead Road in Coeur d'Alene. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and that you opened this up to public comment. I just ask that we preserve our autonomy as citizens of Coeur d'Alene and the great state of Idaho. My request is that the council reconsiders their decision to accept these funds and that they're rejected. Otherwise, simply I'm afraid we're going to sell our freedoms cheaply.
Yeah.
So that's all. Thank you.
Rochelle Otterson, this is regarding the ARPA funds. The purpose for people getting together to establish government is to protect their God-given rights, or natural rights if you prefer, not to threaten our way of life. There are always strings attached to money. Requiring compliance with as yet unspecified federal law, mandates, or executive orders, etc., is extremely dangerous and massively reduces our local autonomy. Governments are getting more and more tyrannical, and you are helping it to do so by accepting the Trojan horse. In essence, you are worshiping money and threatening our way of life. Vote to rescind the acceptance of ARPA funds and then return them untouched.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me? The next item on the agenda would be...
Wait, one more, Jim.
What's that?
One more.
One more? Well, let me stop you. Come on up. If you are just going to repeat what's already been said, I'd appreciate it if you would... Excuse me? I'm going to ask for order. If you're just going to repeat what's already been said, we've heard that. It doesn't need to be repeated, and I would ask that you would not take up the time to repeat what's already been said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Passion.
My name is Katherine Heckendorff, and I reside at 7338 North Ruble Loop in Coeur d'Alene. And President Ronald Reagan, at the press conference in 1986, Reagan summarized his long-held suspicions about the effectiveness and morality of the role of government in people's lives by saying, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, 'I'm from the government and I'm here to help.'" I think that pretty much sums it up. Money has strings attached to it. This money has strings attached. We don't even know the amount of strings attached. We can read the 400 and plus pages just concerning ARPA, which also points to other laws and things you need to look at in that document. And then we have the executive orders, which he can write tonight, tomorrow, when any time he wants, and add to the strings that are attached. On page, sorry, I think it's 262 and 263, it talks about contractors that are hired. They have to hire competent workers, ones who are, competent in their business. That's all great. They should be hiring competent people. But it also goes on to say that they have to hire those from the underserved communities, that they are to reach out to the underserved. Who decides who are the underserved in our community? That's just one small part. Which I don't believe, Mayor, has been addressed tonight of that comment. There also are the other ones stated very eloquently by others before me that have spoken to using the money, that it must comply with state, federal mandates and executive orders. Please keep the sovereignty of our city and those contractors and others, people throughout, like say, people are here from Post Falls and other places, because what Coeur d'Alene does matters.
Yep.
And so I would ask you to really consider and to reconsider. And I think a gentleman earlier, I think his point was about last week's meeting when it was a workshop. That's when you guys voted on accepting the funds. I think maybe that's what he was speaking to, of that it was not announced, it was not allowed any public input before you voted at a workshop, instead of it being at a public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Dianna Sheridan, 412 South 15th Street, Coeur d'Alene. As a business owner of 38 years, I would never be advised by any attorney of mine, nor would I, out of my own fiscal judiciousness, ever sign a contract that I didn't know what the terms were.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm asking you to take this contract and refuse it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Daniel Heckendorff, and I reside at 12384 North Kelly Ray Drive in Hayden. Once again, what CDA does affects those residing around Coeur d'Alene. I myself have 20 other family members who could not be here tonight who opposed receiving these funds as well. Some live on Rubel Loop, others live on Dollar Street, others live in Kootenai County. So in saying that, I'd like to request that the council abstain from accepting this money and being beholden to the federal government. Even if you agree with everything that President Brandon has put out so far with his executive orders, there may come a mandate or an executive order that you don't want to comply with, or even potentially a different president in the future who does something even completely different that you're going to have to comply with. Local government is something we get to have a direct say in, like for this meeting right here. You take that ability and you move it to the federal level, it makes it a lot harder for us as individuals to have our voice be heard, because it gets drowned out by everybody else who wants something from the federal government. You're essentially giving the federal government power to do whatever they want here in Coeur d'Alene if you accept this money. And this money doesn't just have strings attached, it has more like chains attached, because you can't break these strings. These are chains that are going to harm our community, they're going to harm the citizens of the county, and it's not what's best for Idaho. And again, it's 20 more people who couldn't make it here tonight who would be in this room as well, directly opposed to these funds. Thank you.
Mark Salazar, 25027 South Lofts Bay Road, Coeur d'Alene. I'm not prepared as a lot of these people are in the facts on certain things, but if we don't need this money, really, it seems foolish to take it. Nobody wants it. Yeah, right. Nobody wants this money. It's common sense. If you're up here to represent the people don't want it. Yeah. We don't want it. We don't want to be beholden to Biden or any federal people. This is very obvious. This is like common sense. You have to reject this, please. I moved from Southern California to be free, and I don't want to be under the chains of the federal government. Nobody does. Thank you.
Can you hear me? My name is Tom Schaeffer. I'm from 10945 North Rocking R Road in Hayden. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but I feel like I have to represent all the people behind me who may not be prepared to speak. And as a show of hands, who is against accepting this funding? Okay. You asked for something that you haven't heard before. Forgive me if it sounds a little rhetorical. In all my life, when I've paid attention, federal subsidies have always come with strings attached. This is not any different. At the end of 2020, the federal debt equaled the gross domestic product, about $28 trillion. Every dollar spent now is on top of that. The money you're going to receive is monopoly money. It's hot off the press. It's backed by nothing. It's increasing our debt. It's adding to the inflation, which is already hitting us in the butts. It amounts to a paltry sum per citizen. It's damaging the economy, and it sells our local and state sovereignty away for basically a few goodies from the pusher down the street. I don't understand. This is a no-brainer. It's such a little bit of money. Why do you want to take it and give away our rights?
If you want to express your point of view, express your point of view. We're not here to stir up the crowd. Express your point of view,
2 years
sir.
of being stirred up
Please.
by the federal government. These are valid emotions,
Face
Mr.
this way
Mayor.
so we get it on the microphone, please.
These are valid emotions, Mr. Mayor. Forgive me. 2 years I've been under the thumb of the federal government one way or another. This is just adding to the pain. So you'll forgive me if I'm a little stirred up or if my fellow citizens behind me are as well. But it's serious. We're coming to the end of our rope, and this is just adding to the pain. And it's just a little bit of money. Just turn it away. I heard you were only about 140,000 short last year. Why do you worry about this?
Exactly. Don't need it.
I'm done.
Thank you.
I'm Donnie Wright. I live at 1887 North Legends Parkway. I actively served 5 years in the Air Force, 5 years as a federal government, and now I am happy to say I have a construction company here called We the People Construction. I'm very thankful and blessed to have what I have. I have the freedom. I have everything. I've lived in different countries, different states, different everything, but I'm so thankful and blessed to be here. But what I do know is that there's an agenda out there, and it doesn't take it. There's not a lot of people with a lot of common sense out there, and it's just like you see people that are taking money and and it's so unfortunate to see that we're taking this money and it's doing nothing for nobody. And like we all sat here and took our hats off and we prayed like WWJD. I live my life by that, and it's what would Jesus do? And it's like I know that he's going to take care of us. I've had the coronavirus 2 times, And yeah, I got sick. It is what it is. But when we sit here and we have all these people here trying to tell you guys and try to tell the council, like, hey, we stand for something and we need you guys to stand for us, like, we just ask you to please do that for us. And like, you know, we're not here to fight, we're not here to argue, but we just want to stand together, and we need to stand against, you know, like, what's going on out there. History repeats itself. Everything from, you know, a man-made virus, which we all know that it is, but the media does a very good job hiding that, and the things, and it's like one after another, the Delta, the Omicron, the IHU, it's just like one thing after another, and all of that the government's trying to do is push fear. And it's like, it's so sad to see that places like Nevada and Washington and California, you know, there are people moving there, but it's like, what's it going to come to when we don't have anything left and we're just living by, you know, the means of what the government tells us? I just think that you guys need to understand and see, like, you know, I'm younger than a lot of the guys here and I didn't prepare this, you know what I mean? No offense to you guys. But it's like, I want people, because whether you call them millennials and baby boomers, like, people need to stand up, and I'm trying to stand up to show people, like, hey, we can all do this, and we just need to stick together. We got to do our thing. So thank you guys. I appreciate your time.
What was your name again, please? Donnie Wright. Donnie, thank you for your service.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
My name is David Heckendorff, and I live at 7338 North River Loop in Coeur d'Alene. So these past couple years, we've all had a front row seat to watch our community and country being yanked back and forth like a yo-yo, thanks to the politicians and the public health experts who've gained a newfound passion for controlling our daily lives. And this ARPA funding is nothing more than the latest example. So we've already had trillions in stimulus money that has been passed, and so then that's already burdensome enough on ourselves and then the generations that come after us. And now we have this new opportunity with these millions to Coeur d'Alene for federal funds to flood our local community, and it comes with, obviously, as many people have mentioned, strings attached. And there are numerous facets of requirements and regulations that go along with this funding. I know that you guys have indicated that it's up to we the people to educate you on the specifics, and I think that a lot of people have done that quite well tonight. And while obviously I could go into details, but I won't, there's an overarching principle that trumps any of the nuances that could be debated. This money's being held out as a tempting and enticing morsel on the barbed hook of federal compliance. Accepting this money means that we have to comply with everything our federal overlords tell us, and then we have to agree to abide by any tyrannical executive order, global guidance, or federal mandate that gets cooked up and force-fed to us under the name of science, public health, social equity, etc. And as everybody here who spoke has indicated, we're not interested, so I ask that you please say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your input.
I don't want to shout, so I'd rather come up here and ask you politely. Has anybody come forward tonight and asked you to take the money? You have been overruled. You're outnumbered.
What's your name and address, please?
Kendra Martin, I'm from Naples, Idaho. I came
That's
all
right.
the way down here to speak to you.
Okay.
Okay, because this is a statewide issue.
Yes.
And I think that people have done all the education for you. They've done all the homework for you. They've given you evidence upon evidence upon evidence. I think it's very important that you look at this room and realize nobody's come forward and asked you for the money.
Thank you.
More. Hello, my name is Julie Demos. I reside at 2711 Blueberry Circle. And I'm very curious, and I would wish you could answer this question I would like to pose to you tonight. According to the multilateral section 10005 in the American Response Rescue Plan Act, by accepting these funds, you agree to carry out provisions of 301A of the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, 22 U.S. Code 221A, to support the priorities and objectives of the United Nations Global Humanitarian Response Plan, COVID-19. It's right in there. Does this mean that you will give authority to the plans of the United Nations over upholding the American Constitution?
Woo! Right. That's right. Woo! I have a question. Julie? Julie, what page number was that?
I can find it. It's near the end.
Okay.
Hi, Shannon Wheeler, 2972 West Hargrave, Post Falls. I'm not prepared, but I keep hearing the basis of this is money. You guys accepting money that we don't want. Yet you are getting an amazing amount of money because of the growth of this area.
Yeah.
Right. But the reason they're coming, they don't have any idea what you guys are doing. I personally know many people coming with their businesses because they can run their businesses the way they want. So if you're looking for money, you're already getting it by the growth, the quick growth of this area. But you need to know why they're coming, and you need to support that if you want money.
Thank you. Drew Darrow, 2787 West Thorndale Loop, Coeur d'Alene. Would you hear that okay?
No.
2787 West Thorndale Loop, Coeur d'Alene.
Thank you.
I just wanted to propose something quick. Obviously, nobody here wants the money, and my concern is it doesn't sound like we need it. And if we really need it so badly as to compromise something of this nature, can I suggest we fire the person in charge of the budget? Because I run a business, and at the moment, because I moved my business here, we have no future jobs. I'm a sole proprietor, and I'm the sole income for my family. I don't have any future jobs right now. We'll barely be able to make rent for next month. Food on top of that's another tackle. But I'm not taking a loan. I'm not going to get a credit card. I'll work hard when I have the opportunity, and I'll trust God to provide for me and my family. And I ask that you guys do the same. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mayor, I'm new to this area. My name is Josiah Cunningham. I live at 9663 North Ptarmigan Drive in Hayden. And I just want to know who out here has served in our armed services. Could I get a show of hands? Who is a veteran in this area? I am as well. Specialist, Army. I served in Somalia for 9 months. These officers over here, there are many in here, and they are here to protect us. Well, what have they protected us for? Are they here to protect us so that Big Brother government can come and take our rights and freedoms away? Look, I'm not here to say, people can't wear masks or anything like that or can't get the vaccine. I'm just saying, why can't we have a choice? Yeah. We just want a choice, sir. That's all we want. And these people, they have fought for our choices. They have stood for you. They have stood for us. We're just asking that you do the same for us in return. That's it.
Somebody go.
My name is Kathleen Nearings. I live at 4691 South Stack Road, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I say Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, but I freely admit that I do not live in the city limits. Therefore, I have resisted saying anything pro or against. But since you're taking Hayden and Post Falls and everybody else, I think I should at least say something. I'm not going to advise you. I don't have the expertise to advise you, especially on something that I haven't researched myself. These people seem to be researched, even though they aren't directly voters of the city. So all I'm going to say is I'm not going to try to advise you, but I'm going to thank you for your service, very much so. I do not envy what you have to decide here. It's a difficult job that you are going through, and thank you for all your service in the past. I really, really do appreciate it, even though I'm not a citizen of Coeur d'Alene. I've lived here in the Coeur d'Alene area since 1980, and if we're going to talk about service, my father did die in the Second World War for the freedoms. And even though he's not a veteran because he's not here, I'm an orphan of the veteran that did serve for freedoms. And so I'm speaking for freedom. And I really resent the breakthroughs in decorum this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Salazar and I live, Terry Salazar and I
You
live,
need to start over, please.
Terry Salazar and I live on Lofts Bay in Coeur d'Alene. I am also a transplanter escapee from a coastal state. And, it's funny because when we were first looking at this area, I told my husband, I'm like, there's no way I'm living in snow. But because this place was so beautiful, and it's not just the scenery, it's the people. It's back to America where you can pass people and they smile. You don't get that in a lot of places. You don't get that. If you've seen what's going on in California, you've seen what's going on in New York, you see what's going on in Chicago. We don't want that here. And you know that with this money, of course they said come strings attached, but we're expecting you to be strong. We're expecting that you don't have your own interest, that you have the community interest when you're thinking about this. You have to be strong because this is a strong community. There's a lot of strong people here. We don't want you to fold when this money is waved in front of you. It's tempting. I don't know what you think. It's like, we could do this or that. But you know that when money comes with the strong arm of the government and the tactics of do this or else, that's quid pro quo, and it's not right. And it's not very legal, although the way they do it is, their own little thing. But do you know also that the CDC had over 70 reports in 2009 to 2011, all 70, there's more than 70, but all 70 said the masks were ineffective. And it's obvious that they're not effective. And if you look at it, the government wants to control everything we're doing, everything. And if you look at it, whether you have the vaccine or not, you can still get the disease, you can still transmit the disease, you can still have minor symptoms, you can have major symptoms, and for both of them, they can come out with a cold or not. So they're trying to control everything. It's obvious. I'm sure you guys are smart. And if you look at the data out there, the data that's actually not hidden, there's a lot of evidence that the masks are not effective. The virus has actually come down. If you looked at the latest news, it's come down on the cases that we've had. So anyways, Idaho's free. We want you and we expect you to keep it free. That's what you're elected for. Thank you, and I appreciate the work you do, but do it right, please.
I live at 1223 Crestline Drive. I was born here. My whole family's from here, generations of family from here, and I don't know much about politics before this year. I voted in 2020 for the first time, and I can't believe I'm actually standing up here speaking to you guys, but you guys look thoroughly happy and really into what we're talking about for the most part. I wish I could say a joke or something to help lure you in a little bit, but I don't have anything like that.
We do too.
Sorry. The lady before the one previous to me, she mentioned that she is thankful to you guys. I am as well. It can be easy these days, especially. I know that you all have your different agendas and your different goals and your different reasons for doing what you do, but I want you to know that being new to politics and new to like talking to people like you that are doing what you do, you have to consider what we are hearing out here, what we see out here, and what we experience out in the real world, which I'm sure you as well. But from my point of view, I start to question what your motives are. If hearing the same things I'm hearing, the same facts I'm seeing, and the same people I'm talking to, you're talking to, how can you possibly think that this is good for anyone? What's the long-term goal? What is your long-term goal? And because they say that you have to spend this money on, I'm not sure what they say, actually. I didn't research it all that much, but I did pick up a few sentences, and one of them was, they talked about, what was it? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Spending money, oh man, I just lost it. I'm so sorry. What was it? Stage fright, okay. Shoot, I totally lost it. I should have made notes. I should have came a little more prepared because it seemed like a good, valid point, and I know you guys aren't answering us, so I would have left wondering what the answer was anyway, I suppose. But don't make us doubt you guys. Don't, because I am seriously doubting the motives of people like you that are choosing to do this for the state of Idaho, for the city of Coeur d'Alene. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was page 238. Thank you. For the United Nations taking over our awesome constitution. Thank you, Julie.
Kurt Heckendorff. I live at 7338 North Rubel Loop here in Coeur d'Alene. Recently moved up here from south of Boise, and we are at that point in the crossroads in our government that says local is important. Being a state is not subject to the federal government. The federal government is subject to us. And it's important to realize that when you take money from the federal government, the strings, the chains, as my son said, are huge. And we have to contemplate and be what I would say non-compliant. And being non-compliant means that we basically take government into our own hands, and we either make it on our own or we don't. But to get a handout from the federal government and say, hey, this is great, and clap our hands, but then have all the strings attached to it, it makes no sense. And so even though your committee voted and said, hey, this is something that's a good thing, we really have to sit down and really examine nowadays what's happening in our government, what we're taking in from our federal government, and what strings and what rules and what things are going to come along that we have to comply with. So we as citizens and you as our elected officials need to stand up and say, once and for all, we will be non-compliant with what the government tells us to do, our federal government. We are autonomous. We are our own city, we're our own county, and we're our own state. And it's time that we stop this stuff that's going on. You look at California, you look at all these other cities and states and whatnot, and you say, man, look what's happening in those areas. But look what's happening in our city and look what's happening in our state. We are autonomous, and we have to remember that autonomy comes with an ability to stand up and do what is right. And I'm hoping that you can reconsider what your committee decided, take a look at what everybody's talked about tonight, and really taking into consideration what we're giving up by giving and taking this money. And furthermore, I'm really interested in hearing, and I hope we get some discussion from your side of the equation tonight on what we've all talked about tonight, and really get to hear your thoughts and your feelings and really see where the rubber meets the road. So thank you for letting me talk.
That item will come up on the agenda later. This was just public comment. It typically is not used for one certain agenda item. It typically is used for various items of operations throughout the city.
Most of us don't know each other. I know that you thought that we organized this big, huge thing. I probably know maybe 20% of the people that spoke. But this has gone to such a public outcry, and I would guess the majority of us have moved from south of Boise, from California. We saw our state sink, and we don't want our new home state to sink. And like I said, I don't know how many of people know each other. We just all know that this is an issue that you guys have a lot of power over, and that we need to have addressed and to be protected from. And you guys are the ones that can protect us as a whole.
We need to
Thank
to
you.
move on.
Thank you. I just want to say.
The next item on, one more. That's it.
Sean Jackson, 3205 Buckskin Road, Coeur d'Alene. I was here last Monday, and you guys were discussing whether you wanted to accept these federal funds. And one of the the proposals from our police captain seemed to be the main reason for accepting the funds. And I agree with a couple of the other gentlemen here tonight that we got a lot of businesses. There's a lot of wealth in this area that I think the overwhelming majority of this city greatly supports our police department. Yeah. And I think that we can find those funds easily if we knew that you needed them. If we knew that our police department needed expanding, that how could it be that we need to put our hand out to the federal government when this area is certainly not lacking, and especially if it was known that you needed it, that we could pull it together somehow without putting our hand out to the government. And I also want to say the support for police department around here is like much greater than most cities across the country. We stand with you. The things that were going on in summer of 2020, right down the freeway, and especially in bigger cities, I think a lot of us said that will never happen here because the citizens stand with these gentlemen. And if I ever see a roadside checkpoint to see if we're vaccinated, and if you gentlemen are participating in that, it will be the saddest day that North Idaho has ever seen. It'll be horrible. It'll be absolutely horrible. We want to continue to support you, and we need to know that you got our backs too.
Yeah. I'm going to, at this point, We're going to take about a 5-minute break.
Good.
Call the meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 22003.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
I have two items.
Thank you.
One is that I forwarded a spreadsheet that had a list of the appointments to committees and had some discussion with Renata about that. I think that some of you gotten a copy of it. There's some about 40-something committees that council members and staff attend, and there's about 15 or so that were appointed. So I just wanted to make note that there was some errors in some of the committee appointments according to what people are actually doing. So Renata had sent me some corrections to that, and it'll be updated. The other was that I had gotten an email from someone that had indicated I had made a mistake in repeating the oath when I took my when I was, I almost said took my vows.
Sworn in?
When I got sworn in. And I confirmed with Renata that it wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. You can repeat or you can say I swear, and either one is appropriate and accurate. So I wanted to clear that up because that's what was in the last council notes, so.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller.
Aye.
McEvers.
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
Evans.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
English.
Yes.
And I see I skipped over announcements. We'll go back to that. We've had enough announcements for one.
I have a couple.
Other announcements.
I have two announcements. One is I attended a regional webinar on housing solutions. There was a number of presenters from Idaho, Montana, and Washington, and that's part of the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership. The cities around us and the states around us are all struggling with the housing prices and how to deal with their local worker issues. So they brought together a lot of good new resources that we're sharing. We've added some new members to the working group as we have some new electeds on in some other cities, and so we're continuing to meet monthly. Another thing I wanted to touch base with you that's under that same umbrella is we got an email from a person at a mobile home park. Recently, I think all council was asked about how the city may be able to help, and I wanted to let you know we have a meeting with a company called Rock USA, and they are a company that specializes in helping organize particularly mobile home park owners into becoming owners of the property that they rent so that they have some control over their rents and leases before it gets out of hand. So what we're trying to do through the partnership is organize through the cities some ways that that information can get out to some mostly seniors in a lot of these mobile home parks that are very vulnerable to the attractive investment opportunities that North Idaho has. So I'm working with them this week to try to share some more information and hopefully get some tools into their hands that they may have a little bit more an option to control their destiny at least. So I'll keep you posted as to what comes up with the end of those meetings.
I appreciate that because seniors are struggling just as much as the other workforce challenges that particularly industries like the service industries experience. So I think we need to be cognizant of their challenges as well. Other announcements or comments from the council? Councilman Gookin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to thank everyone for showing up. Good government involves active citizens, so I do appreciate it. For you taking your time out to be heard. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in government today is the citizens don't feel like they've been heard. And it's very evident, and it's so many levels. And so anything I can do to help with that, I'm more appreciative of your efforts. I do have some questions for staff regarding some things that were brought up on the, and I know we could probably save this for later, but I thought I'd handle it now. So I don't know who can answer this question, Troy or Mr. Gridley, our attorney. Isn't it true that all federal government comes with pretty much the same rules and restrictions that are in this ARPA thing? It was cited earlier that, we must comply with all federal, mandates and, I mean, isn't that true for any federal funds we receive, like highway dollars, things like that?
Yeah, I think so. It's a boilerplate language, so we must comply with laws. There are all kinds of laws, anti-discrimination, civil rights, you name it. But that's one of the requirements. One of the big recipients, I think, in addition to highway, water, wastewater, has been law enforcement. And I think that they are monitored closely about the funds, how the federal funds are used in their programs. So yes, that's pretty common.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's typical when you accept federal money. That's pretty much what they do with a blanket kind of, you got to obey all of our stuff. And so, yeah, Dan, you want to talk too. Now, there's a few other comments that were made that we'll probably address when we get into the one item. But I do want to address Mr. Darrow, who said we should fire whoever sets the budget. That's us.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I was going to add, since Dan brought this up at this point, when we get to the discussion on that item, and I am one who believes, I think that the public has a right to kind of hear what's on your mind, even if you know they're not going to like it. So I will speak my mind, and this is one area in particular. I've been writing grants, doing things for, well, probably close to 50 years. And, if you haven't been around grants, maybe this seems new and different and outrageous, but I'm telling you, this is pretty much the standard that has there, will be there, and that's with it. Another thing just related to that topic is, we have to follow, whatever rules and things that come along. Yeah, we do have to take it, and if we take it, and I think we should, we got to do that. And you're darn right. If we have subcontractors under us, of course they've got to follow the same, and anti-discrimination and other things. So that is, you do not have the floor here. No, that is, holy cow, lady. That's Karen.
Since when did the UN take over our country?
What are the rules? What's tied to that money? Can you tell us that?
I gave you an opportunity to speak. Now, we did not interrupt you when you spoke. You need to let the council express their thoughts as well without interrupting them. There's some common courtesy that is expected here. We afforded you that courtesy. I would please ask that you do the same to us. Thank you.
That's all I have for now. When we come to other parts and it's appropriate, I'll speak, and when it's not appropriate, I won't.
Thank you. Any other announcements? All right. So then we will move on, actually, to an item that will surprise a lot of people. The next item on the agenda is the ARPA funding.
Oh, Mayor, did we take a roll call vote on that motion yet?
Yeah.
Which motion?
Didn't we just do
The
that?
consent agenda? Yeah,
I thought we did.
We're good.
we did.
Yeah.
It was in a different order than.
Lost on my agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
in order to kick off the discussion, I'm going to make a motion. In moving to accept the federal funds, the city of Coeur d'Alene does not commit to further executive orders from the president. We recognize the funds may come from some restrictions on how the funds may be used. The city makes no commitment to accept future executive orders from the president. Therefore, I move to accept federal funds under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 in the amount of $8,659,329.
Second.
There's a motion and the second. Discussion on the motion. Councilman Gookin.
Yeah, why are we doing this again?
We're doing this again because when it was put on our agenda for our workshop, it wasn't correctly stated as an action item.
Oh.
And so tonight, we are redoing that because it should be stated as an action item and that it's properly approved or not.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I hope that answers your questions, those of you who had that. I would like to comment on the motion too, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I didn't vote for this the first time, and the reason is it's inflationary. The money that was, this is printed money. It doesn't have anything behind it, which causes inflation. It makes things a lot worse. We are in the most over-leveraged economy now in the history of the planet. And there's one way to fix it, and it's the way the federal government is trying to fix it, which is going to lead to a massive recession and layoffs and all kinds of bad economic news. This only makes it worse. And by accepting the money, we have a small amount of culpability toward that. And I don't want to be a part of it. I would like to urge council strongly to not take the money. I don't believe that we were underfunded last year. I don't buy a lot of the stuff about the mandate because we won't do that. I mean, we won't, if the federal government tells us to do something, trust me, Idaho from the governor on down will not do that. So I don't have any, I mean, I have concern about that, but I don't really think that's going to happen. My bigger concern is economic. Inflation is a tax on the poor and a benefit to the rich. And right now we have a lot of vulnerable people in this town, and they're going to be hurt really bad when the inflation happens worse than it is now. And this, I believe, contributes to it. The county taking $30 million contributes to it. All over Idaho, nickels and dimes, they add up, and it's going to get worse. And that's why I would urge strongly that we do not accept the money this time.
Thank you. Other discussion?
I had some questions for Mike, the attorney. Some of this information we heard from these folks who did a lot of research, I'd never heard that before. And you're saying, yes, it's true, but we don't have to. Is that the impression I got?
I'm not sure what it's
Simplified.
Yeah, I think what I just said was it's pretty standard language that if you accept money through a grant, there will be requirements that you comply with existing federal law. You know, I'm not aware of an existing mask mandate or anything that would require us to take action. Sounds like many of the folks are opposed to vaccination mask mandate. Even if the city had authority to do that, which I don't think we could enforce that, there's no current law ordering that to do that. So taking the money now, we're taking it under existing laws. If the law changes in the future, that's a different question. I think we all know it's executive orders have come down from administrations from, since George Washington probably, and each one can either be carried out or challenged. Some of the orders, I think, as we know, under this administration are being challenged and have been overruled. The OSHA order, I think Supreme Court recently ruled that OSHA, or the executive order requiring OSHA to impose the mask mandate, was overturned by the Supreme Court. So I think, as Councilman Gookin, I think, said, I don't see us having the authority or ability to enforce anything if there is such a mandate. We don't run the schools. We don't run Panhandle Health. We don't run a lot of things. And so I think you have a lot of flexibility for challenging if there is a future executive order that you don't agree with.
So Troy, when I remember the meeting before, didn't Friday something came on and said some of the rules were changed before we got to our meeting on Monday, I believe? And
Yes.
that gave me the impression that all the strings have been pulled.
The information that was provided by our constituents here tonight was correct until the federal government said that anything less than $10 million in receipt doesn't have to follow those rules as it was read. So basically, they went back to what we would call lost revenue, which was the formula that had come out. So a portion of the dollars allocated to the city, we were going to show you was, quote, lost revenue. Then they modified that and said anything less than $10 million basically could be considered lost revenue, and the local entities are due to do their best with the dollars should they choose to accept them.
So the strings are not attached because it's 10 million or less.
That is the correct presumption on the way they changed that. So the lost revenue would, in my opinion, equate to $10 million or less, and thus you don't have to follow all of those stipulations as it was written.
Lost revenue is different than project costs.
Do you guys pick up on that? That's what I thought I understood. And
Yes.
Dan, you were ready to, you voted against it, but when it came to spending it, you still had a voice in it, right?
Well, the council votes to accept the money. I want to
Right.
make sure we're going to spend it on something that's necessary.
Right.
It'd be nice if some of those things actually had something to do with COVID. And I've been getting feedback, and I don't know who mentioned it, but someone said, you can offer helps to families. You can offer help to businesses and to nonprofits. And I think if we're going to accept the money, which I oppose in the first place, but if we're going to accept it, I think we need, as a council, to prioritize those things. I got an email today from a nonprofit that had a flood, and they may go out of business. And so can we help them because this is COVID-related? They've been shut down for 2 years. Is that something we can do?
So it's still something, if it would be passed, Mayor, if I'm thinking if this goes through, then still we can decide how the money is spent. That isn't set in stone. I mean, we want to support the police and get them up to par, but it's still pretty open, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Further discussion?
I just had one thing.
Yes.
One thing, and Mike, maybe this is back to you again, is that there was some discussion about the risk of a repayment situation. Do you have any knowledge of that? That's something we hadn't really discussed before. Is that $10 million ceiling still without the strings? Does that take that off the table, or what are your thoughts there?
I think it's a theoretical idea rather
Dan, you,
I think it's a theoretical idea rather than a reality. I've been city attorney for 20 years. I'm not aware of a single case in Idaho or anyplace else where the federal government has come back after the fact, after the money's been spent, it's been authorized, and said, we've changed the rules, now you need to pay it back. So I think that would be a real uphill battle for them if the federal government tried to come to the city of Coeur d'Alene and reclaim any money that was granted to us and then spent.
Okay, thanks.
Over 10 million.
And then just so that,
Arizona's over 10 million.
and so then just to follow up on what Councilmember Gookin said, that if we are accepting the funds tonight, we aren't necessarily identifying the line items of the funds tonight.
that is correct. Further discussion? Dan?
Yes. Something I've noticed, we didn't realize this would be a particularly controversial vote, and a lot of times we take votes and it just comes and goes. But I believe that, for something where there's a lot of interest, that the public, particularly residents of Coeur d'Alene, I think they have a right to know our mind, whether they agree with it or not. I supported this last week. I haven't read or seen anything different to change. I think that I am good with it. A couple of things in terms of the people say, oh, it's just funny money and stuff. The money I pay into the federal government, I don't consider it monopoly money. It's real money that I've earned, and it comes out of my paycheck, and the other folks that I'm born and raised here, lived here all my life, they pay it in. They think it's real money, and frankly, for some of it to come back to benefit our residents, as far as doing what the people want, that's exactly what I believe I am doing and I'm going to do. And I guess one last kind of an editorial comment, part of the beauty of our country is that if you live in the city of Coeur d'Alene, you too can run for the council of Coeur d'Alene, and a couple of years from now, a couple of the seats will be up, including mine. I will probably run again, but you are welcome if you can, if you want to do a different job, but when it comes down to it, we don't take votes by applause meter or anything else. We do the best job, we consider it, and the way the Republic works is we're the representative, we get the votes, and that's who votes. So, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yes, thank
Councilman
you.
Wood.
We had a tremendous amount of discussion in our workshop, so I won't repeat all of it. Some of you were there. Some of the, I guess, the misinformation is that our budget is just fine, when the truth of the matter is we haven't taken a tax increase in about 5 years now. We've taken 0%. And we've done so by managing the budget very carefully and not filling positions that we need. We also dipped into our fund balance last year by $1 million, which is ongoing. We have to refund that. And that was to pay for police officers, police cars, firefighters. We did not fill all those positions that we need to fill. The police expansion is desperately needed. It is right now estimated at $4.5 million. If we took a 3% tax increase on the citizens of Coeur d'Alene, because many of you that would not affect whatsoever, that only amounts to about $450,000, is that right, Troy? With a 3%? So that, imagine the taxes we'd have to take to properly fund the police expansion. So there's a lot of misinformation about our budget, for one, and what the strings are attached to the federal money. So if you were here for the workshop, you would have seen that I absolutely was in favor. I haven't changed my mind today. I agree with my councilman that people do need to come and speak to us. They do have a right to speak to your representatives all the time. We may not agree all the time on what your viewpoint is. We're in a different seat up here looking at the entire budget and all of the things that we need to fund to keep the city moving. But I do think it's certainly something to be respected for all of you to come forward and speak.
We don't represent it. Seeing no further discussion, will the clerk take the roll, please?
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Gookin votes no.
Evans?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
The motion carries.
The city attorney did not give you correct information. They have not gone through those documents correctly. That $10 million has nothing to do with the police department.
Excuse me. This is, would you please stop? We have another motion for consideration. How does the council wish to move on it?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the expenditure up to $4.5 million for the police station expansion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on this motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We had a tremendous amount of discussion on this topic at the last meeting on the need for the police department expansion, and I don't have any further questions. I don't know if the rest of the council has further questions.
The police facilities, public facilities are not entitled to use that money. Look at on the page number.
Ma'am?
436.
It says they're not entitled
Ma'am?
to money. You're giving incorrect information.
Just postpone a week and have them sit down and actually take everything that we've given you, all of the executive orders.
Mr. Mayor, we're not picking her up on our microphones. If you'd like to just continue talking, we can hear only you.
Right. Understand. We have a motion before the council.
Can I add that when we discussed it at the workshop, that we said that the $4.5 million was the estimated amount, and that was going to initially cover their engineering fees and drafting and all of that, but then it was going to come back to us for once final numbers were together. So this wasn't just an amount for approval, and this was kind of a ceiling on the amount out of this
That's
funding
correct.
part? Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Gookin?
Yeah.
Evans?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
The next item on the agenda is resolution number 22-004. HR Director Melissa Tosi.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The proposed amendment to our classification and compensation plan is specific to our payroll coordinator position. In 2017, this position was reclassified from an 11 to the current pay grade 12. At that time, payroll had a majority of all the payroll-related tasks and had very limited help from HR, which we work together a lot on payroll and compensation, wage, some of the specialty pay, that sort of thing. And we just didn't have the staffing to provide finance with a lot of detailed help. Sorry, it's very loud back here. So in the fiscal year 2019 budget, council had approved an additional full-time employee in HR, and one of the focuses on that position when we hired it was compensation. So we really wanted to help payroll in some of the front-end issues, deductions, specialty pay, some of the language in some of our collective bargaining agreements that can be a little confusing, or additional benefits that our payroll person wasn't always privy to, which HR has a little bit more involvement in the contracts. So we really wanted to have a focus in compensation. So that was a great addition to our staffing to allow for that. So since then, HR has played a larger role in payroll, and we've worked together very well. And so with that, some of those duties have really transitioned over to HR for us to start that process. So our current payroll coordinator has submitted a resignation, and so it kind of gave us the opportunity to look at the position a little closer. And Ameriben, who's our HR consultant that helps level our positions, did an internal and external review of that position. And externally, when you look at market, our payroll coordinator is about 8% high on the minimum and about 6% high on the maximum end of our pay grade. But that also did include Boise and Spokane, that their payroll positions were supervisors. So if you were to take those positions out, our position would probably be quite a bit higher than that. So if we were to put it back at a pay grade 11, that would be an 8% reduction in the wage, and that would actually put it right within the current market. And so the internal review, the responsibility and impact is really closer to the HR specialist position when you're looking at our internal alignment. And then it would keep the payroll position still one pay grade higher than the next highest paid finance position, which is the account specialist. So if the proposed changes were approved, there would be no changes to the current payroll coordinator wages because she's actually leaving at the end of the month. So we would update the classification and the duties in there and the wage, and then the title has also been proposed from a payroll coordinator to a payroll specialist to better align internally as well. So those adjustments and amendments would be made with the new recruitment that we're getting ready to post. So other than that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Melissa, currently that position is vacant, correct?
We have an employee in there until the end of the month.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have a couple questions. So is there any budget savings to this change?
The 8%, if you're just looking at the difference in the pay grade for coming in at the minimum, it's only like $3,500 for a year. So the savings is not significant. I'm sure we'll have some internal interest as well, so depending on where that position is currently at in their range, our promotional increases are 10%, so it's hard to say, but the 8% between an 11 and a 12 is fairly minimal over a year.
So when you talked about current market, it seems like a strange thing to think about in regards to, say, parks can't hire people because we don't pay enough and things like that. And here we're doing a reduction based around 8%. And I just was thinking, we pay somebody to tell us that other places aren't paying this much, and yet we don't want to be top paid. We don't want the best people for the best money.
Yeah.
Kind of an old philosophy that goes back a while. It's so rare to see things going somewhat backwards.
Right.
But you're also adjusting the responsibilities. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Back when this position was increased to a 12, the payroll coordinator, she had a ton of work, and she had very limited help. And employees were going to her, adjustments were going to her, admin assistants went to her to make all the fixes, and she's trying to get payroll out and do taxes, everything that's involved in the payroll world, as well as doing all the time card issues and corrections. And so with the additional HR staff member that has helped immensely on all of that review, our goal was to take a lot of that pressure off of her and give her the product just to pay. So we give her the corrections, we audit the time cards, we're doing all of that work that position used to do. So it frees her up to pay payroll and do the benefits and do the taxes. And so, yes, I agree, and we always want to be competitive, and over market is great. And typically 5% is the range that you're considered within market. But internally, this position is really not equitable anymore. So a lot of the direction and help is coming from the HR specialist, and it's a pay grade lower than the payroll coordinator. So all of that help should be somewhat equitable. Ameriben, the consultant, when she did her review, she was even considering bringing it pay grade lower, bringing it down 2 pay grades based on external market, but our internal alignment, it really needs to stay where it's at because stay at least an 11, because the responsibility and the liability of the payroll position is definitely greater than accounts payable, which is our account specialist. So it makes sense to be on the same leveling as the HR specialist, but still get 1 pay grade higher than the account specialist.
Thanks so much.
Further discussion, Dan?
Well, just I would add too, and to Woody too, that they, all kinds of jobs and all of that. I do appreciate that, the fine tuning to the degree that if we need to go down one, sometimes here or there we do, and bottom, kind of end of the day, it's the size and the scope of the job and the responsibility. So if that's changed a bit and there's not as big of a load, then that sounds very appropriate, and I would guess for the size of the job, we're still going to be competitive. So,
Yes.
Anyway, my 2 cents.
Thanks, Dan.
Seeing no further discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve Resolution 2204, approval of amendments to Personnel Rule 1, entitled General Provisions, and to amend the classification and compensation plan to amend the position of payroll coordinator, pay grade 12, to payroll specialist, pay grade 11.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Hearing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
McEvers?
Yes.
Kukin?
Yep.
Thank you.
And we saved
Troy?
$3,500.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I bring before you tonight an opportunity as our Urban Renewal District Ignite will be closing the Lake District. Before you tonight is an opportunity to enter into 2 funding agreements. These dollars have been appropriated in Ignite's budget. The legal teams from each entity have been working on these agreements. Agreement 1 discusses the Museum of North Idaho, a nonprofit corporation that leases property directly south of City Hall on city-owned property where they relocated that beautiful white house. The Museum of North Idaho is in the process of renovating, improving that, and doing work on the exterior of that property. They have made a presentation to Ignite, and Ignite has secured funding of $700,000 to include landscaping, fencing, parking, and utilities, as described in the exhibit with cost estimates. As you know, the Ignite organization has 1 full-time employee. We will be here to make sure that that work is done as we get the best bids and move into the right season. So we would basically be the stewards, provide the oversight and work on that project with the museum. The second funding agreement comes to you again because of the closing of the Lake District. That would be a total of $565,000 that I went in front of Ignite earlier this year, last year actually, and brought forward areas of maintenance that are in the Lake District that staff and Ignite chose to fund. They would include a shade element and sidewalks in McEwen. Some of the sidewalks have busted up over the years. The fire department boat garage to secure the funding for that so we can complete that. Fiber conduit to Atlas Park, which that is in the Lake District as well. Stair improvements on the west side of the library. That will be a maintenance item to repair all the cracks and the edges that are deteriorating. The deck replacement has begun down at the Harbor House. It is a composite material that is going down. It will not have splinters in it and will be more resilient than what was there. And then the Grand Plaza, very near the Harbor House, is a very warm area in the summertime and probably doesn't get the use when we have a lot of sun and heat. So the goal there is to put in tree wells with irrigation so the trees will create natural shade. So again, legal has looked at this from Ignite and from the city, and I bring before you two great documents to provide funding. So again, it will help finish up the Lake District and make our public spaces even better than what they are. I would stand for any questions you may have.
Woody?
I have 2. On the museum, that 700,000 isn't going into the museum. It's mostly groundwork, prep, parks, maintenance, that type of thing, right?
Exterior
Kinda
driveways, yes, it is
fine-
not going into any of the building, correct.
finishing touches on the landscaping and stuff.
Yep, the public
other
land
question-
that it sits on.
I had on the Harbor House deck replacement, is that an original deck?
Original to the project?
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's not making it.
It's timber, it was deteriorating with the sun, and it was splintering. And so with this closing of the district, we went to them and showed a much better composite product that'll probably go 25-plus years. It's actually being installed as we speak.
All right,
Maybe not this moment.
thank you.
Saying no further question, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
question.
Oh,
Thank
too
you.
late.
Nope. Troy, why are we doing this?
To better the assets that they're held by the public.
No, I don't mean that. So the Lake District is closing when?
It closes this calendar year.
I thought it was last year.
No, we're
Closes
still-
this year.
yeah.
So if it closes this year and it's still open and we still have an urban renewal agency, why aren't they doing the funding directly?
Because classically, on these public projects, the city is the contractor. We've done these agreements multiple times with the urban renewal agency.
So they give us the money and then we carry out the job?
We always have to follow through with the details to support the expenditures, so we supply all the receipts. We do the contracting so that we can oversee it and comply with the permits.
Okay.
Then they fund it once we show the invoice.
So, urban renewal in Idaho is funded through tax increment financing. And the goal of that particular mechanism is so that money raised through the improvements benefits everyone. So they take an old mill site that, and fix it up and make it into Riverstone. Riverstone goes off the urban renewal rolls, and we benefit from it because all that development that might or might not have happened, but let's say it wouldn't have happened, we benefit from that. So there's tax revenue that comes from there. But none of these projects seem like they would be generating tax revenue.
For the use of the funds, right, it's part of the urban renewal agency is to do public improvements. And so that's the expenditure.
Well, I'll argue that another part of urban renewal in Idaho would be to bring in jobs. So I don't know. I mean, to me, I think a lot of that stuff, I mean, I'm happy that they're doing some of this stuff. I mean, I could argue that McEwen was one of their projects, and it actually was listed in their plan. And, following through with some of the needed improvements is a good thing. The museum, though, is a nonprofit. They're a separate 501c3. And we're going to be giving them basically a $700,000 government gift.
So I guess I can answer that by saying I did not vote on that. However, it is public land, and we're doing the improvements to the land. I think that would be the rationale, that the city still owns the land, and we look at that as a partnership so that the city and its constituents can see they're proposing, different trees being out there, the landscaping around Tubbs Hill, the parking lot that would be public.
Yeah, but $700,000 of public money is a lot of money to give to one nonprofit. That's kind of my argument. I'm just saying that as a statement. You don't need to reply. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I would like to respond to that. In recent years, due to jobs like this, I haven't done it as much, but I used to travel a lot by car around the country. And when we did that, we went to cities, and one of the things we did was went to visited their museums. And a strong museum, I think, is important to the city of Coeur d'Alene only because part of our economy, and whether we like it or not, is tourism dollars. And anything we can do to enhance tourism, to get more people to come here and stay, spend their dollars here, I think is of economic benefit to the community. It's not as direct a benefit as the job creation that you talk about, and I certainly wouldn't argue with that. But from a secondary point of view, I think there is some value to that.
Yeah, and I would counter that there's a lot of nonprofits in the city that provide services and do things for, the benefit of the public as well as the benefit of tourism. It seems like a tremendous amount. And I support the museum, but I got to tell you, I stopped sending them checks when they started taking public money. And I would like to think that there would be great public support for our institutions, that they wouldn't have to rely on $700,000 of public money.
Further discussion? Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve Resolution 22005, approval of agreements with Ignite Coeur d'Alene for the Museum in North Idaho project for the 7 Lake District projects for 2022.
Second.
The motion is second. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
No.
English?
Yet.
Motion carries. Thank you. We now have 2 public hearings, lest you think you can leave yet. Now, does any council member have a conflict of interest in either one of these?
I eat his
Can't
donuts.
imagine.
Yeah, say if we go to gross donuts, that doesn't count.
We're okay?
What's that?
We have the donuts, we're good, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We eat the donuts.
Actually, you'd think the proponents would have brought some donuts.
Bribed us?
And if somebody wishes to testify, there is a sign-up sheet by the entry that they may do so. Is that good enough? Thank you.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. So this evening, we do have a request for a zone change, and the applicant is CDA Enterprises LLC, and the consultant is Mike DeLay. The request is for a zone change from R12 to the C17 zoning district. The property is located off of Cherry Lane, west of Highway 95, and located at 455 West Cherry Lane. And the legal notice was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press, December 17th, 2021. So this is a location map of the subject property outlined here, Highway 95, and this is Cherry Lane, and north is Niter Avenue. And this is a little closer view. This is the site location. I'll give you a little background information. So this is a 0.37 acre parcel, 367 acre parcel off of Cherry Lane. There is an existing single-family dwelling located on this property, and I believe it's vacant. The applicant and property owner also owns the property abutting this, just on this east side, which is where Gross Donuts currently is. They would eventually consolidate the properties if this is approved, and the applicant property owner has a lease agreement with the existing tenants, Gross Donuts. So should the zone change request be approved, they will enter into a long-term lease agreement of 15 to 20 years with Gross Donuts, and the future plan is to tear the building down and reconstruct a new building and parking lot. They're looking at possible tenants, maybe a yoga studio, CrossFit, or a local credit union for the other tenant space, along with Gross Donuts. This probably does look familiar to the City Council. It did come before you in September. It was denied without prejudice, and the property owner did go and visit with the neighbors, and I'll provide some updates on that here as I go through my presentation. So this is the aerial photo showing the nearby services. As I mentioned, Gross Donuts is located here. Some commercial uses on this property here, Texas Roadhouse, and just to the south of it here is Coeur d'Alene Power Tools. So as I mentioned, neighboring commercial uses around here. These are single-family dwellings here and here. So I will go through the 4 required findings for this request this evening. Finding B8, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. So this is the area where the property is located here. It does fall within the US 95 land use area in the comprehensive plan, and it is in the area of transition, which states these areas are where the character of the neighborhood is in transition and should be developed with care. The street network, the number of building lots, general land use are expected to change greatly within the planning period. Finding B8B, and here are the characteristics of the Highway 95 corridor neighborhoods, and this is located in your staff report. And here's additional characteristics of the Highway 95 corridor. So the comprehensive plan goals and objectives that are listed in your staff report, I won't read them all, but goal number 1, natural environment. Goal number 2, economic environment. Goal 3, home environment, and Goal 4, administrative environment, and they're all in your staff report. So finding B9, that the public facilities and utilities are or are not available and adequate for the proposed use. So city staff from engineering, streets, water, fire, police, parks, and wastewater departments did review the application request in regard to public utilities and public facilities, and each department has indicated that there are adequate public facilities and utilities available to serve the proposed request, and there was no objection to the proposed request. So additional comments and more specifics are in your staff report. Finding B10, that the physical characteristics of the site do or do not make it suitable for the request at this time. So this site is generally flat. There is an existing single-family structure on the site, and I believe it's vacant. There are large trees and other vegetation existing on the site. There's no topographical or physical constraints that would make the subject property unable to change the zoning from R12 to C17. So I took some site photos. So this is looking north at the subject property from the south side of Cherry Lane at the subject property located here. This is looking west near the center of Cherry Lane with the subject property located here. Down on this end is Fruitland Lane. This is looking northeast along Cherry Lane with the subject property on the left and commercial uses further east across Highway 95. So there it is. And this is looking north from Cherry Lane at the existing Gross Donuts building, which I mentioned is abutting the property and owned by the same owner. This is looking south near the intersection of Cherry Lane at Highway 95 at Harbor Freight Tools, which is just across the street and to the south. And this is looking north along Highway 95 frontage from Cherry Lane at the commercial businesses along Highway 95. Finding B11 that this proposal would or would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhoods with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, and/or existing land uses. So this is one of the items that had been discussed a lot by the City Council when this went before them. As far as this one and traffic, proposed zone change itself would not adversely affect the surrounding area. There's no traffic generated from a zone change. The applicant states that the subject property would be used for a parking lot and 2 commercial businesses to the east. And depending on the second tenant's commercial use, the property could generate hundreds of trips. However, the impacts from the combined lots, which is 0.75 acres of the commercial property, are unlikely to exceed those generated from the Texas Roadhouse restaurant located on the .96 parcel at Niter Avenue and 95, which is a similar comparison that Chris Bosley provided. So without knowing the future of the property or potential traffic impacts, Streets and Engineering Department can't predict the level of generated traffic, but with the commercial properties already located nearby and convenient access to and from US 95, impacts are not expected to be extensive. And then as far as planning, should the requested zone change be approved, the C17, C17L commercial design guidelines would require a 10-foot vegetative buffer planting strip between the subject property and the abutting property to the east. And in addition, the applicant has also agreed to install a fence between the 2 properties along the side property line. So that was one of the items that came up. And the property owner did go out, and it's in the narrative. He met with the neighbors. They talked about the access point. They talked about installing a fence and talked about some of the code requirements. And as I mentioned, the buffer requirement is a code requirement for this commercial district. So surrounding land uses, this is the subject property here. Land use now is residential, as noted here in the yellow for both sides of Cherry Lane, and then the red indicates the commercial uses. And then the zoning, the current zoning is R12. As you can see, these areas are all R12, but this is all commercially zoned with the C17 or the red. And the proposed C17 zone is intended as a broad spectrum of commercial district that permits limited service, wholesale, retail, heavy commercial, in addition to allowing residential development at a density of 17 units per acre. The district should be located adjacent to arterials, however, joint access developments are encouraged. And this is a list of a few of the principal uses that are permitted in the C17 zoning district. And the applicant is possibly proposing to have, say, a yoga studio, exercise facility, along with that food and beverage Gross Donuts at this time. This is our zone change map. As you can see, all of the green indicates the past zone changes. This is the subject property. This is the one I mentioned that came before you back in September, and it was denied previously. The other ones were approved. So the decision point provided decision regarding the proposed zone change from R12 to C17 on approximately 0.36 acres. And the City Council will need to consider this request to make the appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions? Yes, Woody.
Woody?
So when they said they were going to buffer that 10-foot space, that's pretty normal when you put commercial up against residential?
That's correct. It's a
And
10-foot vegetative buffer required.
So vegetative buffer isn't necessarily a fence, though?
Well, in addition to the buffer that is required by our code, the owner agreed to install a 6-foot fence. He met with the neighbors and he agreed on that.
Okay. And I was noticing we don't have to do any findings. Is that correct?
I believe there are findings.
They've already been done? I just was reading it. didn't catch it.
I think you would have to adopt the findings probably from the Planning Commission,
Okay.
since they recommended approval for the City Council.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Could you expand a little bit on the conversations with the neighbors? That was our concern last time. We wanted that neighborhood to work well together and see if they could mitigate some of the concerns. If you have any information on that, that'd be great.
Sure. So I think the property owner could probably expand on it a little bit more. But following the September 21st meeting, the applicant did meet with several of the neighbors, and the one specifically that came to this meeting and had concerns about the zone change. And the owner of Gross Donuts also joined them. They talked about the existing sidewalk, and that would be extended because the applicant talked to the neighbors and they would like to see that sidewalk extended. The buffer yard, as I mentioned, that's a code requirement. It's got to be a vegetated buffer 10 feet wide and go along that side property line where the zoning is residential. And then they also talked about the curb cut and the location of the curb cut where it is. The neighbors would prefer that it be moved over. We did talk to Chris Bosley, and he didn't see an issue with that curb cut being moved over. So those are the things that they discussed. And following that, they said they supported the zone change if those things could be mitigated.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. Tammy, they're going to have to put in sidewalks too, right?
I believe they are.
Okay. So the zone requires the 10-foot buffer, but not the fence.
That's correct.
So even if he sold the property, never developed it, it was C-17, the new owner will still have to put in the buffer, but not necessarily the fence.
That's correct. We do some conditional zoning occasionally. One of the zone changes we did last year, we asked, or the city council asked that a condition be added. I believe it was Tapley's, and so occasionally we do that.
Oh, yeah. Now, I can ask the owners here, right? Or
Yes.
The property owner.
You bring donuts? No donuts?
So there's many options for what is proposed here, not just C-17, but they could have done C-17L, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then there's also, we have a neighborhood compatibility commercial zone that we did for the old London's Violin up on 4th, I think it is.
Neighborhood commercial.
Neighborhood commercial, they could have done that too.
They could have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Further questions? Okay, council, how do you wish to act on this?
Excuse me, Mayor,
Oh,
it is
that's
public
right, I need to
comments.
open a public hearing here. I'm kind of rusty on these things, you know.
Now we get.
I will now open the public hearing. I have Paul DeLay signed up, but he didn't indicate whether he wishes to testify or not.
Somebody.
Hard to go to donuts after our earlier discussion, but yeah, my name is Paul DeLay, 1719 South Rocky Ridge Drive. And in between the last time we met, my brother Mike met with all the neighbors, and as you know, there was some resistance there, and I think we were kind of disappointed because the vote wasn't favorable. But actually, I think the process played out nicely. So we met with all the neighbors kind of came on board. I think the neighbors thought we were going to come in and scrape Gross Donuts and drop a retail center or something in there. But we brought Dennis Gross there of Gross Donuts, who's the owner. And if you don't know Dennis, I mean, he's a hardworking gentleman, and it's hard to put in perspective. He gets up at 3 in the morning, bakes donuts. He has both a retail component and he has a wholesale component to his business. And he is a very, he's just got a great work ethic, he's a very genuine person. So that's why we kind of committed to this, a long-term lease and trying to do a development for him, because we think he's a doer. We don't have plans for what's going to go on next door, but we think, it's going to be a relatively small user. I mean, we're talking about, 1,000, 1,500 square feet. And the reason I say that is, if you've been through Gross Donuts, they have an existing drive-through, and the only way you can get through that is if you're in a compact car. I mean, they have a very antiquated operation. He wants a bigger footprint, bigger retail, and I think he needs that because he's kind of at the crossroads of taking his business to the next level. So he's the one who's kind of behind this and driving it. We were kind of on the fence, and then once we got involved in it, we said, let's make it happen. So that's where we're at. Your concern is, hey, what are we going to put next door? And we don't know yet. But I can tell you, if we do a drive-through for Dennis, we give him 2,500 square feet or thereabouts, we're pretty much limited in what we can do for a compatible user. Dennis is kind of the Pied Piper, his community and his neighborhood. We think Dennis will probably find that tenant for us. That's what we're hoping. So, in a nutshell, that's where we're at. We think there's some conditions. We can live with all the conditions. There's a neighbor wrote in, Sabrina Carlisle. She wanted some other issues, and we're on board with that. They're not so much a fence or buffering or landscaping. If the house gets demolished, and it will at some point, she wants to donate it to Habitat for Humanity, and we're totally on board with that. So that's it in a nutshell.
Questions for Mr. DeLay? Yes.
Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. DeLay, you chose C-17 and not C-17L or neighborhood commercial.
We did, just to have greater flexibility. You know, if we had a tenant in tow, I would come in here and tell you we could be more specific in terms of the zone change, but we don't have a tenant in tow that's going to support the refinancing and making this project happen. So we just wanted the greatest latitude in terms of trying to approach this thing.
Property taxes are higher.
Property taxes are higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I would just like to comment and thank you for going back and working with the neighborhood and for Dennis to chat with them. And it's really a much better situation when you live together or in the same neighborhood long-term, that you all can come to some sort of agreement. So thank you for following through on that.
Yeah, and in fairness, I got to tip my hat to Dennis and to my brother Mike, because they were the ones who kind of drove it, and there was phone calls, there were meetings and follow-ups. And to your credit, I think that's probably the way the process should work, let's bring everybody together. So, yeah.
I love a happy ending.
Is that a motion?
I would comment that we are, part of this consideration is a donut business in Coeur d'Alene, and we lost one over on 4th Street, so
Damn.
we
Essential service.
can't go without any donut shops. It's just not a full city without that. Any other questions for Mr. DeLay? Thank you, Mr. DeLay.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you.
it. We have no one else signed up for testimony. Anyone else wishing to provide testimony? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed.
I would make a motion to dispense with
Just a
the
minute.
rule. Oh,
Tammy, did you have anything else? No, I don't. Okay. Thank you.
sure, okay. So, make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 20-1000 once by title only.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Will the clerk read the title, please?
Council Bill number 22-1000, an ordinance amending the zoning act of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, known as ordinance number 1691, ordinances of the City of Coeur d'Alene, by changing the following described property from R12 to C17, said property being described as followed, to wit, plus or minus .366 acre parcel off of Cherry Lane and west of Highway 95, commonly known as 455 West Cherry Lane, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, provide for a publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
Thank you.
Okay, then I would make a motion, I think now, to adopt Council Bill 22-1000.
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
McEvers?
Yes.
Kukin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have another annexation request.
Pull up my request. Take you through our last item of the night. So this is a request that is actually being made by the city of Coeur d'Alene. It's for annexation of public road right-of-way on portions of Aqua Avenue and Government Way. And so the annexation specifically is 5.2 acres of public road rights-of-way on those two sections of roadway. So mentioned that location, we met all the legal requirements for posting notices and mailing. And the Planning Commission did recommend unanimously to approve of this annexation request. And before I get into the specifics on that, I just want to give a little bit of background on this as well. So the road rights-of-way they're in the county, they're within the city's area of city impact, and they are currently maintained by Lakes Highway District. The city entered into an intergovernmental agreement with Lakes Highway District in 2013, and in that agreement it said that the city of Coeur d'Alene would actively pursue annexation of this area into our roadway network, so that basically we would take over the maintenance of the road. Nothing else changes. The road stays exactly the same, but we would take that over. So as noted before, kind of the location, this is the location map. So this is the portion of Aqua Avenue, and this is Government Way, and this is Wilbur. And this green line is the city limits. So here's an aerial photo, just zooming in a little bit closer to that area. You recently approved the annexation of this property here that was known as the Dodge annexation. So that's within the city of Coeur d'Alene at this point. And that denotes that annexation request. Again, just a little bit more details on the roadways that would be annexed in, and from another angle, bird's eye view. Again, I mentioned it's within the area of city impact for the city of Coeur d'Alene. That is here in the yellow boundary. And we have an annexation map included in your packet and on the screen. So there are 4 findings that must be met in order to annex in property. So I'll walk you through those. The first is finding B8, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. This falls within the US 95 corridor area, and it's in the transition area, which is denoted in the green. The white lines here are the roadway areas of consideration this evening. And the transition areas are areas where we expect that their character will change over time. Comprehensive plan objectives, we listed a few. It's a little odd because this is a road right-of-way, so it's different than a parcel that's going to be developed. And so just noted capital improvements and city services are 2 that make sense for supporting of this. And we have some notes throughout the staff report, and then also just kind of clarifying that because it is just public rights-of-way, there's not going to be any zoning assigned if city council approves of this annexation request. Finding B9, that public facilities and utilities are or are not available and adequate for the proposed use. So all of the departments reviewed this and didn't have any concerns. City engineer and streets and engineering reviewed it and didn't have concerns about taking over the maintenance of those 2 sections of roadway. And again, for findings of this, it would be based on the existing street system continuing to provide adequate access to the surrounding properties, and it wouldn't negatively impact anything related to access or infrastructure and services. Finding B10, that the physical characteristics of the site do or do not make it suitable for the request at this time. The site is relatively flat and no topographical or other constraints. So here's the topo map. Some site photos. You can kind of see the sections of roadway. This is the southern boundary. This is Wilbur, so looking north on Government Way, the cemetery to the west. So here is looking back down south on Government Way. Here's looking northwest at the Aqua Government intersection. You can see this is looking out east at that intersection on Aqua. And this is looking out toward US 95. And this is looking back the opposite direction, so Government Way is in the distance. Finding B11, that the proposal would or would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, and or existing land uses. And as noted before, it really just gives control over to the city for maintenance and decisions related to improvements to the roadway. As noted in the staff report, Government Way has already been improved up to city standards. Aqua has not, but it's considered good or decent roadway conditions, and we don't expect a lot of traffic or things to change on that roadway at this time. Zoning, it wouldn't have any zoning classification, but this map shows the surrounding zoning districts. And land use as well. So the red are commercial uses and the blue is civic, and then this beige is vacant. So lastly, your decision point is considering the annexation of the 5.2 acres of public road rights-of-way along Aqua Avenue between US 95 and Government Way, and on Government Way between Aqua Avenue and Wilbur Avenue. And again, there would be no zoning assigned. So your action alternatives are to consider the request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Questions for Planning Director Dan?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. That 2013 agreement.
Right.
It'd be good to have that in the packet.
Okay.
Because
Apologize for that.
Just
yeah.
because, I had
Sure.
questions for Todd earlier
Okay.
regarding, why isn't anyone from Lakes Highway District here? Because you
Right.
think, but if they've already had an agreement,
Right.
that's.
We did include that in the Planning Commission packet, so apologize it didn't make it into this
okay.
one. So.
Okay, thank you. Are there going to be annexation fees for this? That's a good
I don't
answer. I
think
like that
so,
answer.
since it's going from a public entity to a public entity with no change in use, but
Okay.
we'll let Troy and Gurley determine. We will also not have an annexation agreement.
Yeah, I spoke with Todd earlier, and I don't think you need to come up. I'll just encapsulate kind of what you told me, which is it's going to add like 5 minutes to the plow, and maintenance costs should be. You want to come up? Sure, why not? Okay, estimate what the impact would be to our plowing and maintenance. We have to stripe it, so it's going to be a few buckets of paint. And if you could just share with council what you told me earlier, thank you.
Okay, something I wanted to add to that conversation. This past year, we did a chip seal that went all the way to Prairie Avenue. The Highway District did contribute to that, so they paid to, help us with the chip seal of their portion. They also paid for the paint. So the road's in really good shape at this point, nothing needs to be done to it in the immediate future, just general maintenance. As far as snow removal, we like to turn around in intersections. We typically have to go through Wilbur Avenue already because we maintain just past there, so we typically turn around up at Aqua Avenue already. So really, the only difference is that short piece of Aqua, and we can turn around up there fine. Yeah, it's for our team, maybe 5 minutes of additional plowing. It's not a real big deal. Eventually there will be some additional maintenance cost here or there, but right now the road's in pretty good shape. I did talk to Chris Bosley. It helps us with some control to access, controlling for the new development and stuff, so there's no confusion on who's taking care of what. So it's really pretty minimal for our department.
Very good, thank you.
Further questions? Woody?
A couple. So this is interesting wording, strip of land varying in width. And according to your diagrams, it's 60 feet wide, Aqua. It doesn't look 60 feet, but that's probably something we'll deal with.
Right, so the
eventually.
right-of-way is not
Okay.
always paved, and so it would kind of go beyond, especially in Aqua, because it doesn't have the curb, gutter, sidewalk that
Gotcha.
you'd usually have. But the right-of-way width is
Okay,
at full
so we
width of
still have a
60.
ditch, though?
Correct.
Where the snow can go and the
Right.
water can go. Sewer, water, any impacts on that for that
It
development?
would not,
That'll-
no, and this isn't even within the city's water jurisdiction, and then it would not impact, we already have city sewer services available there. So changing, again, is just, we would now be maintaining the roadway. It doesn't change any of our city infrastructure.
So it's not Dalton water, it's Coeur d'Alene water?
It's not Coeur d'Alene water. I
Is-
forget which water district it's, yeah.
Okay. So from Aqua to Prairie, no man's land again, huh? They'll take care of that.
Right.
Well, we keep the relationship going, right? So there is no, you guys were talking about income. I was looking, is there any money to help support this? It's down the road. Is that correct?
It would be, and I'm not sure if Todd could speak to that. I don't know through the
Well, the
intergovernmental
development of
agreements.
that piece of property that we annexed will eventually do something to impact those roads, right? The ingresses, egresses, and some money.
They would improve just the frontages where they would connect, so here at this location and then here, but they would be paying into their fees, so they'd be paying impact fees, which would benefit with
That's all I got.
circulation.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to.
This is a hearing.
Oh, excuse me, sorry.
What?
It's a hearing.
I gotta open public comment.
gotta
Sorry,
close.
I jumped the
yes.
gun this time.
We
Y'all
have-
want to get out of here.
Yep.
I would open up the public hearing. Is anybody wishing to testify? Nope. I will close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve A-6-21, a proposed annexation of public road right-of-way, strip of land varying in width, being a portion of the public rights-of-way of Government Way and Aqua Avenue, the applicant, City of Coeur d'Alene, and to develop the necessary findings in order.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers.
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Okay, would the clerk read the title, please? Oh, no, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong spot.
Is it
It's the next motion.
Now, we have the ordinance for this right-of-way.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 22-1001 once by title only.
Second.
Motion and second, further discussion. Clerk, take the roll, please.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Oh, yeah.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
Please read the title.
Council Bill number 22-1001, an ordinance annexing to and declaring to be a part of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, specifically describe portions of the northeast quarter of Section 26 and a portion of the northwest quarter of Section 25, Township 51, North Range 4 West, Boise Meridian, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, and providing for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt Council Bill 22-1001.
Second.
Motion second, discussion on the motion. Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Of course.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to recess to January 25th, 2022 at 3 p.m. in the Library Community Room located at 702 East Front Avenue for a workshop regarding Envision Coeur d'Alene and the Coeur d'Alene Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion on that motion? All those in favor respond with aye.
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 We are recessed.